Let's erase the board and get started. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com. And today we're going to talk about the strangest fluency secret. I mention this occasionally on my videos, but I wanted to just give an introduction to this because it will be the introduction to my book. So here we are. But if you can understand this one simple idea about learning, it will help you get fluent much faster. Let's make sure we're live here on YouTube as well. Okay, I think we are working. All right, we are. All right, let me make sure. Get the board erased over here. I'll give YouTube a moment to notify people, but it looks like it is working. All right, I will keep my eye on the chat, but I want to get through this. This should not be a very long video. If you're watching this and the length of the video is more than an hour or something, it's really just the beginning part of this, and then I'll be answering questions after that. But nice to see everybody there. I think Tsubasa said it's raining in Fukuoka. It's raining here in Nagasaki too, kind of on and off. All right, so as I mentioned, I will be releasing my book pretty soon. I'm working on it, and who knows exactly how long it will take. Things always take longer than you expect, but I wanted to just talk with this and really make sure people understand this idea, because if I can't explain this in a video, there's really no point in me releasing a book. Because again, the point is not to just make a book, but to have something that really explains everything so that anybody could read this and really understand how to become fluent. All right, let's get started. So I want to kind of go through the introduction to the book and explain the main problem people have with learning, and then a different way to think about getting fluent. So hopefully this makes sense, but I want to go through this step by step to make sure everybody understands. So if I seem like I'm being a little bit basic here or covering things too simply, it's just to make sure everybody is on the same page. That's a great expression, to be on the same page, just like a book. So everybody understands, everybody is following along here. So the first thing here is just understanding the goal. So the main people I help, my teachers might be watching my videos as well, but the main people I help are people who know a lot of English but struggle to speak. And so the goal is to speak fluent English confidently. That's the goal. If anybody is here for some other goal, let me know, but let me know if this is correct. So as I go through this, I want to make sure everybody is on the right page, I'm speaking to the right people about this, and that I'm solving the right problem here. So basically, the goal is to speak fluent, F-L-U, that's supposed to be F-L-U-E-N-T, English. Speak fluent English confidently. So this is the goal. Let me know if that is not your goal, but hopefully that makes sense. So if you do want to speak English confidently, you can understand what I'm saying right now, but you're not yet a confident speaker. This is the goal, and this is the purpose of the book. So what I want to go through here is now talk about why people struggle to speak. Now you can put your own comments here, just so again we're on the same page. But again, we have the goal. This is the place people would like to be. They want to get to this, but they are unable to speak for a variety of reasons. So let me know if this is you. Just post a comment. Let me know exactly what your struggle point is. What is the thing that's stopping you from getting fluent? Now, I'm going to seed this a little bit to kind of prepare people for this, but I'll be looking at comments if anybody has any particular pains or any reasons why you think you might not be able to reach this goal, or something that's preventing you from getting it now. So I've been helping people get fluent for over 20 years, and these are the four main buckets. We call this like a regular bucket, so kind of a group of things, and there are four main reasons why people are unable to speak. These are the things I've heard from people, and pretty much every reason I get will fit into one of these four buckets. But if you have a specific reason, I'd love to hear what it is. Just post that in the comments now. So you want to speak fluently, but you're unable to speak because, and then we've got these 4 main buckets over here, so let's cover those. Here's my eraser. I'll just go through these one at a time, but let me know if you have any comments or any specific issues that I don't list or any questions about this. So we've got 4 main things here. The first one is just a natural introversion. So maybe if you were just like shy or introverted, to be intro, like inside facing, introverted means you don't really like speaking with people or you're a little bit shy. And I mention this specifically because some people are introverted or shy, even speaking their native language. So some people are just naturally shy. It's not like a language issue, but people might be shy. But like they're unable to just like in a group situation, they don't feel very comfortable speaking. So it's not necessarily a language problem, although it could be. But the main thing here is that you just have natural shyness or introversion for whatever reason. I don't want to talk, this video is not really about overcoming that, although I do talk about that sometimes, but I just want to talk about it as a reason people give, all right? The second reason people give, and probably the most common one, is a lack of confidence with communication. So we'll just put here lack of confidence. So a lack of confidence for communication. Pardon me as my head gets in the way a little bit. So again, you want to speak fluently, but you're unable to speak because either you're shy or introverted, or you have a lack of confidence in communication. And by this, I mean, this is really the whole group of things. Like, let's see here, if we've got some specific, let's see, examples over here. Abrish says, I know many words and their meaning, but I can't bring them to mind when I want to speak English in a quick how to improve myself. Okay, so that's falling under this category here. So you might have specific problems like you forget your words, or you have trouble with your pronunciation, or you're not sure about grammar, whatever those things are, that leads to a lack of confidence about English. Okay, so any problem you could think of dealing with communication, whether it's listening or trying to speak or anything in between, that's all falling under this category here. Okay, so anything you might think of, like in the moment of communication, what actually stops you? So if you're in a conversation with someone, you can't keep the conversation flowing, or you forget your words, or you can't think of the right thing, or you worry in the back of your mind, are people judging you? Those kinds of things, that's all leading to a lack of confidence in communication. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Again, I want to make sure everybody understands each of these pieces, and everybody watching this video should, if you have one of these problems, you should be fitting into at least one of these categories. So next one, and this is an interesting one. I kind of put it off by itself, even though it's related to B over here. But this one is a lack of vocabulary. Now, this is specifically for people who they like to study English and they continue to learn more, and they feel that they're unable to speak fluently because they don't know enough words. Okay, so maybe they, whatever, this could be different numbers of words for different numbers of people, like whatever that is, like, 1,000 words or 10,000 words. There are always people who are continuing to learn more, and they hope that at some point they learn a number of words, that whatever that number is for them, like 10,000 or something, whatever their number is, that at that point they will speak fluently. But what I usually say to people who mention this kind of complaint or this reason specifically why they're unable to speak is, if you can understand what I'm saying right now, but you don't feel confident speaking, how would more words help you? How would learning more words make you fluent if the vocabulary you already have is not something you feel confident using? Okay, so let's say like this many words over here. This is like 1,000 English words. And you can understand everything I'm saying, even if you only understand 80 or 90% of what I'm saying right now. But you have a good number of words in your vocabulary. You can understand things well. At what point do you think you would become a confident speaker? How many more words do you need in order to finally develop fluency? And what I'd like you to see for people who have this particular reason why they're not fluent is if you're not already fluent here, you don't become fluent simply by learning more, because if you're not fluent in this, why would you get fluent by learning more words? Okay, fluency doesn't mean you continue to add words and, oh, look at that, now you get to like 1001 and suddenly you can speak fluently. So learning this word over here doesn't magically help you learn all of these. Okay, so just wanting to make that clear. So a lack of vocabulary, it's related to this. So people don't usually think about it that way, but what they're really saying is, I'm not confident in the vocabulary I have, so I'm waiting to become confident until I learn a few more words. But they don't know exactly what that is, or they couldn't tell you how many words they need to know. They just have an uncertain feeling that they don't have enough. Okay, so that's why I put this as its own category over here. All right, and the last bucket, so reasons again why people are unable to speak: they don't have anyone to speak with. So no speaking, we'll just say partners or chances or opportunities. You don't necessarily need a speaking partner like a classroom or a lesson kind of thing, but just people to talk with. All right, so no speaking partner. And this bucket here, anyone fitting in this bucket, this would be people who don't live in an English-speaking country, or even people who do live in an English-speaking country, but they don't have anyone to speak with. So let's say you live in America, but you live in some small town and it's mostly, I don't know, like let's say you live in a place where you don't get chances to speak with native speakers, again, even if you are in the United States, or maybe you are not married to a native, or you don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, or you don't have any friends, or even just people who don't speak English. Now, it's quite difficult to live on planet Earth and not have some kind of chance to speak, especially with the internet. So if you can watch this video right now, you can probably find people to talk with. And again, like ChatGPT, another example that just came up right there. There are plenty of opportunities to speak if this is like, you know, if this is an issue for you. But the more interesting thing about this is even people who do live in English-speaking countries, who do actually have lots of opportunities to speak, who even are married to native speakers and they know a lot of words, they still struggle with fluency. Okay? Isn't that interesting? So lots of people will, like if you're living on a mountain by yourself in a small house somewhere and you don't actually have any chances to speak with natives at all, maybe you have no internet connection, and I don't know how you would see this video, but let's say someone shares the video by putting it on a disc and sending it to you. If you have like absolutely no chances to speak, you don't really encounter these problems over here, but that's the basic thing is even people who have all of these advantages, many of them still struggle to speak. So a lot of the people I help, these are people in English-speaking countries especially, who feel that they just can't live life the way they want to because of how they communicate. So because of their poor English, they're not able to interact with people. They can't have good conversations or better relationships. And this could be professional relationships or personal relationships, whatever, even just speaking to people in the neighborhood. So even me living here in Japan, I know plenty of people who are married to Japanese natives, so Japanese native speakers. They've been living in Japan a long time and they still can't speak very well. Okay, so being in the English-speaking country or the native country, whatever, living with natives, even being married to a native doesn't necessarily guarantee fluency. So some people, again, maybe have no speaking practice partner, but the real problem is more like when they get into conversations, they probably hit one of these things up here. So they have a lack of confidence because of how they're actually speaking. All right. Let me know if I missed anybody or if anybody has some additional reason why they would not be able to speak. I want to make sure I hit everybody, because there might be somebody who just says, well, actually I'm a space alien and like I have like a problem with my mouth or something like that. All right. So just making sure I'm covering everything that might come up here. But I think this is it. In my 20 plus years of teaching, these are the 4 main things that I hear from people as they're struggling to speak. Did I miss anything? I want to make sure I cover everybody. Let me know. That way everybody is, again, on the same page as I go through this. All right, let me know. I'll check comments right quick. Looks like we're doing all right. I'll answer. Looks like these 2 right here. BY says lack of practice or get less scope of talking with people, not using the opportunity to speak much. Okay, so again, that you could have a combination of maybe more of these, like 2 or 3 of them, or I mean maybe all 4. Some people, they have no chance to speak and they're introverted anyway. Or you could have, maybe you feel you don't know enough words, but also in conversations when you try to speak, maybe you forget your words or you struggle to say the right thing. You're not sure about, maybe I should use this word in this situation. You don't know what sounds natural or how to pronounce things the way a native would say them. So all of those issues, like they could come from various pieces of this, but that's the general idea. And if speaking becomes difficult because of these reasons, most people either can't do it or they just ignore it, or they try to avoid speaking because they don't want to, because it could be frustrating, or they don't want to be judged or whatever. But I really want to make sure this is clear. Lefter says, hi, my teacher. How are you doing? Thanks a lot, my friend. I appreciate your hard work, though. We try to improve our language through of it. Oh, okay. Your understanding. Let's see. And God bless you from New York. All right, glad to hear it. Thank you very much. All right, but glad to hear. It looks like nobody else has anything additional to add to this. And so, again, I want you to think about these things like the problem seems like you should be able to speak, and people have probably heard the term practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. Have you heard that expression before? Practice makes perfect. So the more you practice something, the better you become at doing that thing. So if I speak a lot, I should become a more confident speaker. All right, that's how it should work. And so that's why people spend a lot of time thinking about how they can speak, or being frustrated that they cannot speak, like they don't have speaking opportunities, or they just don't feel confident about the vocabulary they know. But I'd like you to try to think about this in a different way. And that's the purpose of the introduction, but also the general idea of my book. But before I get into that, I'd like to tell you a quick story, and hopefully it should make more sense why these things over here, they don't need to be frustrating for you, and there's actually a different way, a better way to get fluent. So this story, very quickly, I was visiting a then girlfriend and her family. We were staying at a kind of cabin in a summer, it was like a summer vacation house we rented, and it was in the woods, and it was around, I'll just draw this very quickly, it was on a lake. So the house was over here, but there was a restaurant on the other side of the lake, and we wanted to go get, I think they had pizza or something like that. And so we got in my girlfriend's car, and I had not driven that car before, but I said, I'm happy to drive. And it was kind of a long drive through the woods to get around over here. And I noticed as I was driving that it was really difficult. Like the car felt very slow. I would kind of move forward. I would have to really push hard on the accelerator. So that's the gas pedal. And as I'm driving through the forest, obviously there are some turns and places I have to slow down anyway, but I'm going through, and it really felt like I was pressing very hard on the accelerator as I'm trying to get through. So when we got there, I realized, I looked down and saw that the parking brake had been on the whole time. So I'd never done that before, but I was just unfamiliar with the way my girlfriend's car was. So the parking brake wasn't like a little lever in the middle of the seat, like between the driver and the front passenger seat. It was like a little push button thing. And so when I had gone through there, I had realized like, oh, like I wasn't like the car, there was nothing wrong with the car, but the brake had been on the whole time. So I'm trying to drive and I was really pushing down hard, but pushing down more on the accelerator wasn't doing very much because the parking brake was on the whole time. Hopefully that makes sense. And the point of this story is that like there are two sides to the driving equation. The first, so you can think about your two pedals over here. You've got the gas and then you've got the brake on the other side. So there's the regular gas and the regular brake when you're pushing them, but there was an additional, just put a P here for a parking brake, and sometimes it's a little lever that you pull up. It usually looks like this. You kind of pull on that, and it's like what you would use when you're parking the car. So I was pushing down hard on the gas, also known as the accelerator, but I wasn't really going much faster. And so what you learn from this, like this taught me a very valuable lesson when I was thinking many years later about getting fluent. And that is that like the two pieces of this is all like kind of the speaking piece over here, but what's really stopping people is the brake part. And they've essentially got the parking brake on while they're trying to speak. And so when you're forcing yourself to speak, it's like trying to keep pushing down on the gas when all of these doubts are continuing to stop you from speaking. So if you look back at all these things, being shy or introverted, lack of confidence, a lack of vocabulary, or no people to speak with, and even when those people get into speaking situations, usually they're not very confident about their English. So the deeper problem here is not opportunities to speak, it's the doubts that are actually stopping you from moving the car forward. All right, let me know if that doesn't make sense. But I really want to just have a very simple idea for people, not only to understand why they're stuck, but to give them a different way to think about learning so that you can focus on something else. All right. So, for example, you might think you're not getting enough speaking opportunities, but that was like me trying to just push down harder on the gas. So even if I push down harder on the gas, I still have the parking brake up while I'm trying to drive. And that's going to cause the car problems. I'm going to start and stop. I'm not going to enjoy the ride. I'm not going to drive smoothly. And I will, again, injure the car probably. All right. And so that's the same thing that happens to most people when they try to force themselves to speak. So again, they could be shy or introverted, or they have a lack of confidence because of whatever their speaking or communication issue is. And then they maybe have a lack of vocabulary, but what that really means is they're not confident in the vocabulary they know already. So they're still waiting until they know a certain amount, or they keep studying more, hopefully with the hope that you become fluent. But again, most of the time that does not come from people. And so not being able to speak at all because you don't have anyone to speak with, you don't really have much of a problem anyway. But those people, when they do start speaking, they often find that they have these kinds of problems over here. So the real problem is not just pushing on the gas more, it's not more speaking opportunities, it's actually releasing the brake. And so you have two different options for how you can try to become a confident speaker. The first one is to continue pushing on the gas and continue forcing yourself to speak. So you can continue looking for more opportunities to speak, even if you don't feel very comfortable. You can just kind of power through it. You can make yourself feel more confident about things just by telling yourself, okay, I know I need to make mistakes in part of the process. You can continue doing that, or the much easier thing to do is just release the brake. All right? So the whole point of my book, and really everything I do, is trying to get people to understand this idea. You have these two options here, these two paths. One is to continue trying to force yourself to speak, or thinking that you maybe can't speak because you have no one to talk with, and so now you're just stuck, you can't really do anything. And the other option is just releasing the brakes, and that means removing the doubts that stop you from speaking. Does that make sense? I really want people, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, but the basic idea again is you want to speak fluently, and so it seems logical that you should speak more in order to get fluent. Practice makes perfect. But people have lots of issues being able to communicate for these reasons, and maybe there are some others, but these are the general 4 reasons I hear from people that complain about not having either chances to speak, or when they are in conversations, they're unable to speak because they're shy or nervous or whatever. So instead of continuing down this path of forcing yourself to speak, why not just release the brakes and actually erase the doubts that stop you from speaking? If you can release the brakes, just like when I was driving in that car, if I knew the parking brake was on, I could just release the parking brake and then I can start moving. Then there's nothing wrong with the car. I wasn't a bad driver. It was just the parking brake was on. And so it's much easier just to remove the brake that's actually stopping you from communicating, rather than just trying to look for more opportunities to speak, or to sit and do nothing because you don't have anybody to speak with. So what actually gets you fluent at the bottom of this is not the speaking opportunities, it's how well you feel about speaking. It's the confidence you have about speaking, and it's much easier to eliminate the doubts by releasing the brakes, like what I call releasing the brakes here. If you can eliminate the doubts, you can do that by yourself anywhere you like, and then when you do have speaking opportunities, you will feel much more confident and certain, so you will communicate much more fluently. Does that make sense? All right, I really let me know if this idea makes sense. I'm trying to make this very simple, but the basic idea, again, is you have 2 paths you could take, because you have both the gas and the brake for connecting with communication. The gas is like the speaking opportunities. It's continuing to feel like I need to speak more in order to get fluent. But when you do speak, you still have all these problems, then you're probably not going to get much further or make much progress in conversations if you have all these problems, okay? So you have doubts about whatever, your lack of confidence because you can't think of what to say, or your pronunciation, or whatever that is. But if you could eliminate those doubts, wouldn't you feel more confident speaking? Wouldn't you? Does anyone say no to that? I'm curious. But let me know. I'll go back and check comments, but I really want to make it's really this simple. But if you can change the way you think about this, where instead of focusing on the speaking part, why don't we try instead to do the much easier thing, which is just removing the doubts? Because you can do that anywhere by yourself. You don't need to have a practice partner there to understand the language better. But then when you do speak, you really will feel much more confident and certain in your communication. All right, let me go through and see if I missed anybody here. Allah says, does your program help a person reach the C2 level? I don't really worry about particular levels like that, but if your goal is to actually have confident communication, then yes. So if that's what your goal is, like I really want you to be clear about not like a letter or number, but what is the actual outcome you're looking for. So if you want to be able to speak well, to understand people, to communicate confidently, then that's what we do. So again, if you're talking about Fluent for Life and how we actually help people, the process we use in Fluent for Life is the process of removing doubt. So of course we show you how to do that, and we show you how to meet people to practice speaking with. But the more important thing is removing the brakes that stop you from expressing yourself. Because if you get into more conversations and you don't feel confident about those conversations, you're just going to waste those opportunities. Okay? It's like if you give a child a bunch of money and they like just spend it on stuff, they're not going to use it wisely, and they just burn through the money. But if you teach a child, like, look, this is how you can use it well, and you can grow the money or whatever, then you have a much better chance of them having fun and also not just burning through all of the money. So again, you have 2 choices about how you can learn. And it is true that you can develop fluency by speaking, but it's just much more difficult if you have to force yourself to speak. So if you're in a conversation and you don't feel confident, you're not going to feel like you're making much progress. You might learn a little bit, but you're not really it's a much more inefficient way to try to speak, or try to improve, I should say, because you probably aren't speaking all the time, or it's hard to find people to practice speaking with. And even when you are in speaking conversations or speaking in conversations, you've got lots of doubts that stop you from speaking. So wouldn't it be easier to just release the brakes first? All right, you can do that by yourself very quickly, anywhere you like. You don't need to wait for anybody. You don't need to wait for a teacher or a speaking partner or anything. Remove the doubts first, release the brakes, and then it's much easier when you do get into conversations. Like even me, I don't have a Japanese teacher, but because I feel confident about speaking, I talk to people all the time. Just when I see people in a convenience store, or I say hello to people walking down the street or whatever. So when you're feeling confident, there are no shortage of people to speak with. And even if I didn't live in Japan, I could still find people to practice with online if I wanted to, but I would do it the native way rather than looking for like a Japanese teacher. A Japanese teacher would be helpful maybe to understand some things if they could help me understand it like a native, but for the most part, I don't really spend much of my time like trying to learn the language in the typical way. I understand the language and I try to remove doubt. So any things I'm uncertain about, I remove those doubts, and then I feel much more confident about speaking. And it's like a magical thing that happens where now that I feel confident, even when I'm walking around, people can tell that I know Japanese. I look different and I feel different to other people. I remember years ago I was standing on a train platform where I live, and there were some other Japanese people there. And an old Japanese lady came up to me and she says, "What time does the train get here?" I don't remember what exactly she asked, but something like that. And I thought it was interesting that she thought to ask me rather than all of the other Japanese people who were standing around. So I think maybe I was closer to her. But when I first came to Japan, I had a different atmosphere, a different feeling. So I was a bit more kind of shy and closed off like that, like hoping people did not speak with me. But now I feel much more open and I'm much more excited about speaking. And so I say hello to people and I get into conversations with random people all the time. I met a guy just at a coffee shop and I ended up like, he took me out to lunch just because I had like a nice conversation with him. But when I first came to Japan, I was not able to do that. All right. So again, the problem was the doubts that were stopping me from speaking. Even though I lived in Japan, I had lots of people to speak with. I had chances to speak every day, but I was avoiding those speaking opportunities because I felt shy and embarrassed and didn't want to make mistakes in front of other people, all the typical problems people have. So it occurred to me, why not release the brakes instead of trying to force myself to speak, which feels very uncomfortable and it wasn't actually helping me very much. So yes, like I was able to drive from here to the pizza place by holding down on the accelerator and pushing it down as hard as I could, but I was damaging the car probably, and I felt pretty stupid after I got there and saw that the parking brake was on, and then I could have driven much more easily if I had just removed the parking brake. All right, does that make sense? So let me know if this idea, again, let me kind of clear some space over here. If you are feeling shy in conversations or you don't have anyone to speak with, I'll make this very simple for people. You can try to speak, or just say speak. And this is really forcing yourself to speak, even if you aren't confident, you just try, like I will try to say hello to people and I will try to speak. You can improve that way. It is possible. It's just really quite difficult, and especially if people have nobody or no chances to speak for whatever reason, then if you think speaking is the only way you're going to get fluent, then you really can't do anything. Then you're just stuck. And so the other one is to remove doubt. So we got the gas over here, or we got the brake. And from my experience, having gotten fluent and having taught lots of people how to become fluent, this way is a lot easier. it's a lot faster, and you can do it by yourself. It's much more efficient. As quickly as you like, you can become a much more confident speaker. This way, it certainly is possible to do it, but for a lot of people, they hit all of these walls, all of these problems, and they get stuck, and then that's the end of the story. So they spend years trying to do these kinds of things when if you just remove the brake, you would start making progress very quickly. All right, does that make sense? Let me know. This is the introduction to the book. This is really the whole idea of how we do this. But if you don't agree with this idea, or you think there's a problem with my logic or something, let me know. Because I really want to help people become fluent, and maybe there is some additional way that you could get fluent that I've not heard of. But like, if you really want to like keep doing that thing, and it's probably not going to get you fluent, or you're watching these videos because you still have all of these issues over here, it really means that you just need to remove the doubt. All right. Let me see here if anybody had any questions. Cam, nice to see you there. Blue Sky, what is the difference between shy and modest? Well, modest is typically like you're not, maybe you don't talk about yourself too much, or maybe you dress modestly, like you would cover up your body rather than having like a low cut shirt. So that would be more an example of like modesty versus immodesty. But shy just means maybe you're worried about either being judged, or you're just quiet, and there could be some reason, but typically that's a difference. Like you can be modest without being shy. So like a person could feel like, I'm going to dress in a more conservative way, like a woman who covers herself more, but she might not be shy. So she could be like, hey, everybody, how are you? And she's very extroverted rather than introverted over here. So she might go out and speak with lots of people, but still be conservative or modest in that way. Let's see. Rolla says, we can't say no. Again, yes, like my goal is not to like push you in a certain way. It's just this way is typically really difficult for people, and that's because they don't know that this way exists. So I call this the strangest fluency secret, because it's the opposite of what most people expect. They think they should speak more, when the kind of other thing you could do is removing the brakes. Like actually, the thing that's really stopping you from expressing yourself is the inability to. It's like the things that stop you from speaking. That's really what's going to. If you can remove those things, and it's much easier to remove the doubt than it is to speak more. Okay, so we've seen like all the reasons why speaking is a much more difficult thing to do, especially if you have no one to talk with. Now, again, it is possible to find people like online. There are services to do this if you want to do that, or you can just find people who are interested in whatever your interests are and speak with them about that. It's not that difficult to do if you think more like a native rather than a language learner. But again, in general, removing doubt doesn't require you to have anyone to speak with. The point is just to eliminate any uncertainty you have about speaking. Okay, so if you are, let's say, even just something very simple like if I have a word. Like if you read a word like that and you're not quite sure about how to say it, like, I wonder what the pronunciation is. Is it cot or coat or something like that? If you don't know, then you probably won't say that word. So you have a doubt about the specific pronunciation of that word, and that will stop you from using it. Or another example, the pronunciation of this is coat. But another example might be even native English speakers. They're trying to write a word and they don't remember how to spell it. So if they can't spell a word properly, they will probably switch to something else. And again, it's the same example of you having doubt about something that stops you from using it. So either you just don't use it, or you find something else, or whatever, another way to do things. But again, if you know the pronunciation of something, you feel confident about using it. If you know how to spell a word, you feel confident about writing it. Okay, it's the same kind of thing. So if we have to think about like which of these two is the easier process, which one is probably going to get us to the goal faster, and the goal being speak fluent English, it seems like removing the doubt would be the better thing to do. Okay, so you can think about this. I'll draw one more, see if I can fit one more thing on here. The goal here, we're going to put our little like a gold flag up on our mountain. So the goal here is fluent communication. And most people think you're going to go directly there by speaking. I'm suggesting that you actually get there kind of indirectly. You're going to take a different path by removing the doubt first. And as you do that, you will feel much more confident about speaking, and that's what ultimately gets you to the top. So there are two different ways of doing this. This way is much more difficult. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to climb up a mountain and make it really difficult for myself. Maybe there aren't very many people to speak with, or I just don't have any chances, or I feel shy for whatever reason. You can see there are lots of difficulties or reasons that would stop you from expressing yourself. Okay? But if you instead remove the doubt, it's much faster, much easier, and it's just a different way of getting to the top. Okay? All right, let me go back, check comments. Let's see here. Let's see. Allah says, I can understand everything you say, most YouTube videos, songs, and even newspapers, but I find it difficult to understand movies. Why is that? So that's another thing here. You have a lack of confidence about the language itself. So that's just an understanding thing. The difficulty there is that the way I'm speaking now is different than the way people would speak in movies. So in movies, people are going to be probably faster, and they're going to blend the sounds of their words together. You might hear some difficult accents or some maybe levels of politeness that you're not used to. So some people speaking very casually, or some people very, very polite. And the biggest difference is you're going to have lots of different kinds of English. So it could be slang or phrasal verbs or idioms or movie quotes or cultural references. All of these things are what natives would use, and I do not, for the most part, use those in these videos. All right, so if I'm trying to teach you specific language, then I will use that. But for the most part, I'm not doing that in these videos because I'm trying to teach you like a lesson about something. And if I am teaching you, again, we've got a fire truck or something as usual. That's like my signature. I should have a fire truck on my logo, like English Anyone Ambulance or something like that. Anyway, so that's the reason people have trouble, and that would be fitting into this issue over here. All right, so you have a lack of confidence. You just don't understand what you're hearing. So you can understand me, but it's hard for you to understand the natives in movies and TV shows. Now, the question is, if you could understand those people, would you feel more confident about speaking? If you could understand movies, would you enjoy watching movies more? Yes or no? Any answer there? So just think about that. Even if you don't type a response here, if you could understand movies and TV shows and you understand them just like you understand me, would you feel more confident? Would you feel more excited? Would life be a little bit easier for you? Probably. And so it's much easier to arrive at that if you just remove the doubt. Okay, so rather than trying to speak more, it's going to be very difficult for you to try to speak more and understand movies, because that's not really the problem. The problem is, how can I understand that thing better? And so why don't you just do that? So this is what occurred to me. Like, this is the lesson I finally learned after 15 years of struggling to learn different languages, even living in Japan for a year and still not being able to speak, when I finally discovered, oh, like, I'm not communicating well because I just lack confidence in the language. I don't understand what I'm saying, so I should remove the doubt that stops me from speaking. Okay? So anybody who has like a combination of these problems, looks like Ali says, I'm confident but I lack speaking practice, like that's not really your issue then. Like you don't really become a more confident speaker by speaking. I know it sounds a little weird, but if you have no one to talk with, it's very easy to find people online. Like you could go anywhere, or like even commenting on YouTube videos. If you comment on a bunch of English speakers' videos about some interest that you have, like let's say you like I don't know, whatever, like traveling to Hawaii or something, or like just traveling in general, or you like cars, or you like storytelling, or whatever that thing is, you can find groups of people who meet online and actually talk about those things. It's quite easy to find people to speak with. So the issue is rarely no speaking practice. Now, maybe 20 years ago, before there was online video, maybe that was an issue for people. But even then, the lack of communication is not really the major issue. It's not just having people to speak with. It's not really feeling confident about the language anyway. So for me, like, I don't need to speak with people all the time to improve my Japanese. I just need to get lots of examples that help me understand the language better and remove the doubt. Okay? So I don't spend all my time trying to speak, even though I'm surrounded by Japanese people. But when I have opportunities, when I see people, I try to begin a conversation if I can. But the interesting thing is, the difference between me now and me years ago is, years ago I felt shy because I was worried about making mistakes and the usual kinds of things. But now I don't worry about that. I feel much more confident because I know how to use the language, so I can get into a conversation with a random stranger and I don't know what we're going to speak about, and I still feel confident about that. Can you feel confident in that situation? Would you say hello to somebody you don't know and begin a conversation with them? If you have like 100% confidence about the language, you don't really need to watch videos on learning English. You should just watch native content and just enjoy life. Like you don't, like, if you don't have anybody to speak with, just watch the stuff that natives watch and spend your time doing that. But if you have doubt, and that's most of the people I help, like, they might have some confidence about a few things, like feeling confident about talking about work. So they hear all of those examples about their profession all the time. If you are an accountant or you work in a factory or something like that, people will use that same vocabulary again and again, and you will have no doubt probably talking about things at work. But if someone asks you, hey, what did you do over the weekend? Then you're thinking, oh no, I'm not confident about speaking about this because I don't know, I have lots of doubts. How do I talk about this? Or what is the correct vocabulary? All of those different things. It's the doubts that stop you from speaking. It's not the speaking opportunities, especially now. 2024, 2025, with the internet, like, it's very easy to find people if you feel confident. Okay? So I wouldn't worry about that. If your issue is like you feel 100% confident, but you just don't talk with anybody, why not? What is the reason you're unable to speak with people online? It's very easy to find people. Let's see. Access says, I prefer to use the brake as you advise. Yes. And again, like, it's not like using the brake, it's releasing the brake. So there's a parking brake on the car, and then there's the regular brake and gas pedal. So I'm trying to make this clear, like, if you release the actual brake, the parking brake is something you put on after a car has already stopped, and usually you're just parking. You don't want the car to move anywhere, so you put the extra parking brake on it. This is also known as an emergency brake. So it's not just about like pushing down on the gas or the brake pedal. I'm talking about actually releasing the brakes, because the brake is the thing that's really stopping you from speaking. You can continue to push on the gas, looking for more speaking opportunities, but it's probably not going to help you if you still have doubts when you speak. Okay, so we should probably, it would make more sense to do that. So that's what I teach, that's what I recommend, and I have not found anything faster or more efficient than this. So if you find something, let me know. But for the past 20 years, this is what I've been doing because it works. Let's see. Cam says, I'm an introvert. Yes. And that's interesting. I don't really know much. Like, I'm fairly like extroverted. I like to say hello and talk with people. But I noticed I became introverted in Japanese when I was not feeling confident about speaking. So it kind of made me more introverted, and I had more of an introverted posture. But I like communicating with people. And so when I became able to do that, I started doing it more, and it made me more extroverted in Japanese. So if you are kind of introverted about all things in life or even in your native language, that's probably a subject for another video. But again, if you're just introverted in English because you don't feel confident, Wouldn't you feel more confident if you eliminated the doubt? So when someone says, hello, how was your weekend? You can say, oh, it was awesome. We did this and that, and you can have a great conversation about that. Wouldn't that feel great? That's my life over here now. So it was not like that before when I struggled to communicate, but now people can ask me random questions about whatever. Like yesterday, I had some air conditioners. So it's a kind of an air conditioner and heater installed in my house. And I was talking to the workers that came, and I was curious about how, there is a wall outlet. So this is called an outlet, like in Japanese, like konsento, but like in English, you might have different kind of plugs, depending on what country you're in, but it's just called an outlet like the power outlet where the power comes out. So we had to install the air conditioning units to plug into the wall, but the wall was set up for 200 or 200 watts or something. I forget. No, 200 volts. 200 volts, I think, VOLTS, if I'm correct. I'm not an expert on electrical systems, but anyway, they were 200 volts and they needed to be converted to 100 volts. So we had to change the actual outlet, like the physical plug, and we also had to change the power from 200 to 100. Now, I was able to have a conversation with the staff about that. And I said, oh, can you teach me how do you do that? I'm curious, like, how do you actually turn an outlet from 200 into 100 or 100 into 200? Because I thought there was actually something like behind the outlet itself that you had to switch or flip or something like that to change it. So I thought, oh, okay, you put a different plug in there, like not something that looks like this, but it looks, I don't know, it has like a different shape to it or something like that. So I thought, okay, you just change this. But he said, oh, yeah, I'm happy to show you how that works. And so he took me back where, so it like took, it's like 100 and 110 or whatever it is. So it depends on the country. So countries have different voltage and different plugs as well. So in Japan, it was 200 to 100. And so when he was explaining that to me, I got a lesson on how to change an outlet from this to that. And I don't know anything about that. I hadn't ever studied that in Japanese, but now I know. And so what happened was he took me back to the breaker. So the breaker, this is like the little box with all the switches on it, where the power controls each of those little switches for the various outlets in the walls. And he said, oh, look, we've got these wires over here. We've got a red wire and a white wire and a black one. And depending on their combination, we can make a specific switch over here, 200 or 100. So it was very easy to switch it from one to the other. He said, look, I just like remove this wire over here, and now we have a 100 volt outlet. And so the breaker is connected to the outlet, and now we can put the right thing in there. And he said, if we just put the 200, if we put like a 100 air conditioner, 100 volt air conditioner into a 200 volt socket, it would explode. So I said, oh, well, thank you. It's a good idea we switch the outlets. But again, this was me able to learn some new Japanese just by having a conversation with him. I had not studied anything about that, but I had the confidence to get into that conversation. Okay, I was able to say, oh, like that's really interesting. Can you teach me about that? So here was another example. I had not prepared for that. The conversation was unexpected. I did not know who I would be speaking with or what we would talk about exactly, but that was the situation. Okay, so I didn't have any doubt about asking him to teach me that. And I didn't have any doubt as he was explaining it, and I could ask him questions, and I was able to learn more Japanese as a result. Okay? So my problem was not like preparing to speak about this stuff. Like I didn't study, I wasn't trying to learn more about outlets or electricity in Japanese or anything like that. I just didn't have any doubt about being in that conversation with him. Okay, and because I didn't have any doubt, we had a good conversation. He could teach me that, and yeah, it was very interesting. Anyway, maybe you don't care about outlets, but there probably are things you do care about that you would like to be able to speak about. And if you have no doubt, you would enjoy that more, I think. All right. Let me go through, answer these last couple of questions over here. Let's see, Axis again. I have enough vocabulary, but sometimes I struggle using grammar, verb, tenses, past, perfect, etc. Any advice? Number one, it's just advice. We would say any advice rather than advices because it's uncountable. But number two, again, this is a question about lack of confidence about particular parts of the language or usage like grammar or whatever. So I would spend more time trying to learn about those particular grammar points, get more examples of them, but get those examples in different angles. So not just getting like similar examples, but try to learn about these things in different ways. This is what I call naturally varied review. And it's one of the three things I talk about in the book that removes your doubt. So again, if you understand like the path is we're going to go down the removing doubt path rather than speaking path, then that's where you start learning real language and you start getting fluency triggers to really understand the language well, and you get naturally varied review to really understand things and see how natives use the language. Usually what happens in conversations, like another big lack of confidence issue here during communication, this is when people don't know the right thing to say for the situation. So something happens and they don't know what's the best way to express that. How should I speak about this situation? And the other part is being able to connect situations or connect sentences fluently. So if you feel a lack of confidence about that, it's much better to see lots of examples that remove your doubt. So if I see lots of Japanese people talking about something, like if I see a bunch of people ordering food, if I watch 10 examples of that, I'm going to feel much more confident about using the language. Because look, that's how we learn. We see a bunch of varied examples, so not the same thing, just repeated, but slight differences. So I hear a little bit difference in pronunciation or speed or level of politeness or whatever. But as I hear all of those together, they really help me understand the language very well. So they remove the doubt that stops me from speaking. So when next time, like I go to order some food, I'm going to feel more confident about doing that. Okay? So I don't need to practice speaking. I'm not trying to step on the gas or look for more speaking opportunities. Let's just remove the brake. Okay, it's like remove the brake. Very simple. Like stepping on the gas while you have an emergency brake on. If you've ever driven like that before, you know how frustrating that is. And I was so dumb because I didn't realize that there was like a problem with the car while I was driving it. But then I got to the end and saw, oh, like the parking brake is on. It's been on this whole time. And I guess my girlfriend didn't notice it either because there were some places around that road where, look at that, like we don't realize like, oh no, the parking brake is actually on because we're moving quite slowly in some places. Let's see. All right, Allah says, I live in a country where English isn't spoken, but I made my 4-year-old daughter speak only English by following your advice. Thank you, teacher. Glad to hear it. And I made my daughter watch videos in English. Yep, and so that's the same thing I do with my own kids. I get to speak with them, but I'm not forcing them to speak. Yeah, consento, yeah. So it's not like consent, it's like, that's like the word for outlet in Japanese. But it's written in katakana like that. I don't know what that's from. Like I don't think it's English. Like it might be coming from, I don't know, some other language that has a word like that for outlet. Maybe French, German, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you might hear. I think I've heard Japanese people say like autoretto, maybe like using the English word outlet. Zoe says, I can understand you for every sentences, but when I want to express like your expression, I couldn't find the way to start the sentence and start to translate from my head. How could I solve this? So, like number one, Zoe, I understand what you're trying to say. So I get the general idea, but I see lots of errors in your grammar, and that tells me that you've got a lack of confidence about using those particular things, and that's why you translate in your head before you speak. So if you could remove that, if you didn't have to translate in your head before you speak, because you actually feel confident and you know the grammar and you know the words really well before you speak, wouldn't you feel more confident about speaking? Wouldn't you? So if your issue is, like, I know some vocabulary, I can understand what other people are saying to me, but they're still struggling to express themselves, the problem is they've still got doubt. So instead of trying to speak more, why not just remove the doubt? If you knew that grammar well, if you knew the vocabulary well, if you were not worried about pronunciation, wouldn't you speak well? What would stop you from speaking still? What would be the issue? If I know something really well, like even in my native language, right now I can speak well about language learning because I know a lot about it. That if I try to speak about fixing cars, I don't know much about that. I mean, even stuff about electricity, I'm like 200 watts or volts, like that's actually a completely different thing. And that's why I don't have a YouTube channel about teaching electricity stuff. All right, so it's the same thing in your native language that it would be in English. If you don't feel confident about what you're saying, you're probably not going to use it. All right, but if you do feel confident, you don't need to practice a lot, like speaking a lot, to develop that confidence. The point is just to remove the doubt. So we've got these two different ways of learning a language. We can try to speak more, and usually this is like looking for speaking opportunities or practicing saying things, even if I don't really feel very confident about them. So that's forcing yourself to speaking when you're uncomfortable, okay? You could do that, and some people do get fluent by doing that, but it's less efficient because you have to wait for people to speak with. Even if you speak well and that's how you're trying to learn, you still have to wait for people to speak with. So the much faster and easier way to do it is just removing the doubt by yourself. Okay? As long as you get examples, specific examples that eliminate specific doubts. So I don't just mean doubt generally. Usually you know what you have uncertainty about. So if you can say one thing, but you can't say this other thing over here, that's the doubt. Focus on destroying the doubt for that thing. Like using a particular grammar point or understanding what a word means or something like that. Okay? So that's the basic idea. If we have any other questions about that, let me know. But this is the strangest fluency secret. So most people assume you should be speaking more. You step on the gas to become fluent, when I'm recommending instead just remove the doubt, because that's the thing that's actually holding you back in conversations. Okay, the perfect network engineer. Glad to have a network engineer with us today. Bless me for fluency in English. Remember, you don't even need a blessing for this. It's just remove the doubt. I'm not like praying every day that I become fluent. It's just, what is my issue? How can I solve that? And then that's the thing. All right. Now, having gone through all this, I haven't really explained much specifically about how we remove doubts. That's the focus of the book, and this video would be much longer. But if you're curious about that, I recommend you watch the previous live video when I talk about the 3 questions I get from learners, like the 3 general questions, which cover all the things, like we have these kind of buckets here for the different problems people have. There are 3 main buckets about the kinds of issues people have with speaking. So if you're uncertain about vocabulary, like why do I understand teachers but I don't understand movies? So I get that question every video. And so I'm making the book so that it's like, look, just read this book and you will understand everything about it, or you can certainly watch my videos as well. But I'm trying to make this as fast and simple as easy as I can. And the most basic way I can express it is like this. You've got 2 choices. You've got speaking more, or you've got removing the doubt. This one is going to be much more difficult because you have to find people to do it with, and maybe you don't feel confident when you do it. But removing doubt is much easier, and you can do it anytime you like, even if you have no one to speak with. So you can get fluent much faster. So fluency really develops as you remove doubt. That's what learning means. If I learn more about something, I feel more confident about speaking about it. Okay? So remove the doubt, and you will become a more confident speaker faster. All right. If you'd like to learn more about that, again, I recommend you watch the previous video, so the one right before this one on YouTube, the YouTube Live, and you can also click on the links in the description to learn more about Fluent for Life. This is actually how we take people through this process. But the whole point is to remove the doubts that stop you from speaking, rather than just trying to force yourself, putting a lot of pressure on yourself to speak, especially if speaking chances are difficult for you. Does anybody have any questions about this? Anything that's not clear? Or now I'll open this up. We've been talking for about an hour so far. I have a little bit of time left, but if you have some random questions or anything else, but you can see the kinds of questions we get like from people. Why do I understand things but not speak well? That's here. Because you have doubt. You have doubt about that particular thing. You're uncertain about it. Or might just don't have anybody to speak with at all. You don't, then that's not really an issue. Either you do find people to speak with because you are confident, or if you're watching videos like this, it probably means you'd like to know more about the language itself. Like you probably still do have some doubts. So even if you do get into conversations with people, even if you are talking, you still might have things that you struggle with. All right. So most of these problems, they come back to doubt. It's like having that parking brake activated on your car. It's slowing you down. It's causing you to hesitate and struggle and not enjoy conversations. So if you can release the brake, then you can start enjoying things again. You will learn much faster. You will feel much more confident, and you will communicate fluently. All right. Well, it looks like we've got no more questions. So either I explained that perfectly, or maybe, I don't know, people are doing something else. So I'll give you one more minute as I wrap this up. I'll erase the board. Usually I erase the board after I'm done. But just in case anybody has any questions, or if you have any counter arguments, or you think maybe this doesn't make any sense, I'm really here to make sure you understand this idea. This is the one idea that can change everything about how you speak and change everything about your life, really. If you really need English for your career or just to have good conversations with people in your everyday business or your community or whatever, wherever you use English. And so I have, my main goal is to get people fluent, and until I find something better, this will be the thing I continue doing. All right, so it makes sense. It's nice and easy to do. You can do it anywhere you like by yourself, and that's how it works. All right, looks like we have no more questions. So if you would like to learn more about this, if this idea makes sense, do watch the like the previous video if you have any questions about like how removing the doubts work, because I go through that in that video as well. But this is the core idea right here. George Chan with a nice hand up there. Juan Carlos says, so that means I have doubt about almost everything. Well, probably not. Like what you just wrote was correct. Did you have a doubt about that? So there probably are some things that you have doubt about, but a lot of things you do not. And it's a personal thing. So maybe you are, like you do feel doubt about some things, but there's certain things you do not feel doubt about. But you know that yourself. You can feel if you're uncertain about something. So it's very easy to think about what to study next. So like in Fluent for Life, if you know how to talk about one kind of subject, then you can choose a lesson set that gives you something you'd like to talk about, but you don't feel very confident about that. All right, but you don't like put pressure on yourself to speak or feel that like, oh no, I have doubt about everything. Like the issue is probably just specific doubts about pronunciation or grammar or whatever. And my point is, even with one example, if you can feel more confident talking about something, or even if you know how to spell a word correctly or whatever, like I remember teaching the word extraordinary to a friend of mine years ago, and she told me the story, like, I remember how you taught me the word extraordinary when we were kids, and you just said, oh, it's extra and ordinary, which like she knew how to write. And she like remembered that lesson, and it just shows you like even something like one word, if you learn a word and you understand it without a doubt, you will use that thing confidently and fluently. So if you can apply that from one word and think about how that works with the language as a whole, that's how you can become fluent much faster. So you don't need to keep forcing yourself to speak, just remove the doubt, all right? Of course, you can do this, and people do get fluent that way, but it's just a lot easier and it's a lot faster to do it this way because you don't have to wait for other people to do it with. All right, so if you'd like to learn more, let's see. Yeah, so like you wanna like make sure if you are not confident, let me just translate that for people. Like, confidence is important because if you don't have confidence, you're not going to want to speak with people. And this is not just about language learning; it's about anything. If someone brought me to play like I don't know, like a different sport like cricket or something, and I don't know how to play, and they just say, hey, go play on this team and start playing. I would have no confidence in doing that because I don't understand the rules. I don't know how to play the game. I don't know what's like a good thing or a bad thing. And so anytime we lack confidence because we don't understand things, like that's the thing that you need to become fluent, because how else would you speak? And this is just, it's a tricky thing about humans where we are unlikely to do things if we think other people will like judge us, or they will like laugh at our mistakes or something like that. So we will notice those issues ourselves, but if other people notice that, that's particularly embarrassing for us. And speaking is a thing that we usually think about, like as an adult, speaking your native language. Most people are very good at speaking their own language by themselves, and like their native language doesn't give them any issue. But when you try to learn a different language, suddenly you are like a baby again, and you can't speak and you don't know how to express yourself. And so those are the typical problems that come up. But it's typically doubt. And so if you lack confidence about something, like you don't have that like jishing, that self-belief, like the comment I just got, like if you don't have that, like rather than kind of waiting for that, you can just remove the doubt, and the confidence it just erases itself automatically as a result. All right, I'm going to get going, but hopefully that makes sense. Can you explain why English of the students is each of the students is responsible for their own work is correct? Each of the students. Yeah, I'm not going to take time to explain that. I would do that in ChatGPT. That's the kind of question that ChatGPT can help you with. Anyway, I got to go. It looks like I got some trouble at home potentially. I think Aria, my oldest daughter, might be sick right now. We'll find out. Anyway, I have to go, but that's the kind of question, like you can get that in ChatGPT. It will explain that perfectly for you. But have a fantastic day. If you'd like to learn more about all of this, again, it's a very basic idea. If you feel no confidence about what you're doing, it's going to be much more difficult for you to communicate. So just release your brakes. All right, focus on that rather than trying to push yourself to speak more. You can click on the the links in the description below, and I will have some more questions for people next time. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.